Hi, I'm Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years, and today I have my special guest. She's the author of the book Homesteader Mindset, no other than Miss Elizabeth Bruckner.
Thank you for having me, Daniel. It's great to be here.
Welcome to Book 101, Miss Elizabeth, and can you please introduce more about yourself?
Absolutely. My name is Elizabeth Bruckner. I'm a homesteader, acupuncturist, and author of the Homesteader Mindset.
Miss Elizabeth, thank you so much for sharing your debut book to the world.
I love the applause, Daniel. I love them.
Thank you. And please do create more and more and more empowering books like this to come. So, what's inspired you to write this book?
Well, I'm actually an accidental homesteader. So a lot of people don't even know what the word homesteading means. Initially, back in about the 1800s, 1862, there were a number of homesteader acts in the United States which afforded or actually granted federally owned acreage to new owners, to folks that wanted to homestead. They wanted to have a home and have land. And this was actually 270 million acres were given to private owners. The modern homesteader is more a practice of cultivating resilience through a more intentional way of living. And so I started upon this path of intentional living and found that the things that interested me, like growing my own food in my suburban area and creating nutrient-dense food and having a more sustainable lifestyle, all of those things fell under the umbrella of something called modern homesteading. And I love to teach what I learn, and so that's exactly what I did. I wrote a book about it.
And congratulations, Miss Elizabeth. So, how do you define a homesteader mindset in today's modern world?
That's a great question. Homesteading is a mindful choice, and it has many spokes of the wheel. So many homesteaders mix and match their options. I'll give you a few because, quite honestly, some of your listeners may already be a homesteader and not know it, just like me. Some of the things are cooking nutrient. It's true, right? Like some of the things that I just listed, it's like, oh, I do that, or I'm interested in that. And that is a homesteader mindset. Cooking nutrient-dense food, learning to ferment vegetables and dairy products. That was kind of my beginner dabble in homesteading, using traditional methods to cook foods like tossing away your microwave, getting out of those drive-throughs and creating fast foods at your home. And in the pandemic, a lot of people started baking with sourdough bread. That's one of the spokes of the wheel of homesteading. Growing food on your land, as we mentioned before, using glass containers over plastic. That's a big one. Composting your kitchen scraps, reducing waste. All of these things are things that are part of the modern homesteading, even using healing herbs in your kitchen. So if you create a honey garlic recipe, like just a fermentation, that's a great cold and flu healing herb. It's a dual action. And so these are things that you might already be doing and not realizing that you actually are a homesteader. which brings more connection to your community and to yourself and to your spirit.
So, Miss Elizabeth, do you believe anyone can adopt the homesteader lifestyle even in urban or suburban areas?
That is a great question, Daniel. See, this is why you're so good at this, because you have really good questions.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Yes, it's very possible to have a homesteader mindset or even a homestead in any area. In my book, I talk about three particular areas: the urban area, the suburban area, which is where I am homesteading currently, and then the rural area where there's people with lots of land. And each one has different ways that you can create a homestead. And it's not difficult as long as you keep it very simple and you learn from those that went before you. So there's a person in Los Angeles that lives on a tiny postage stamp in in the heart of Los Angeles that's growing enough food for 5 families. Now, that's not what I do. I'm not quite as intense as this person, but the part of gardening and edible landscaping was what interested them. And so they're able to do it in a very urban area.
Great. I hope people will read your book and to be a home style. So, what are the core principles behind building a sustainable life according to your book?
There are a number of core principles. I think that the most important thing is deciding how you're going to start a homesteader mindset. So a lot of times people will say they're really overwhelmed, and my book makes it very simple yet very inspiring. So a lot of readers will read this book and go, you know what, I just started a windowsill garden and I had no idea I could do that because I live in an apartment. And another will say, I've started thinking of different ways that I can create food for my rabbits. Like I can grow food for my rabbits, and just creating these closed loops. Have you ever heard of the word closed loop before in gardening or in sustainable living? For your
Not yet.
listener, okay,
Not
for your
yet. Please
listeners that
do enlighten us, Miss Elizabeth.
thank you, Daniel. For those that don't know, a closed loop means everything that comes into your loop stays in your loop. So I'll give you an example. When I create a veggie juice from the carrots in my garden, I'll then take the scraps from the garden and I'll put them into my compost. So that's close that loop. That compost will then be fertilizer for my garden to grow more carrots. So the loop continues. The loop continues. And you
Nice.
look for ways to have stacking functions in all the things that you do. Like, how can I make everything that I do in my life work better and more efficiently? And one of the ways that carrots could work better is you grow them. They're less cost, they're nutrients to your body, but then they're going to also become compost. It's going to become a fertilizer for you. So in terms of the 3 principles for homesteading, in terms of getting the homesteader mindset, I recommend picking a corner, immersing yourself in found time, and making homesteading a priority. And that can be really simple. So when you think about picking a corner, just take a little daydream, 5 minutes, set the timer, write for 5 minutes about what you love about homesteading or the ideal homestead for you, and take one habit in that. So maybe it's, I want to make cheese from raw milk. How do I do that? You take that and you make that your corner, and then you immerse yourself in found time. So in language learning, I learned that they call it dead time. I don't really like that word. So I prefer found time. And found time is like when you're waiting in line at the grocery store, or you, it's nighttime and you usually watch your favorite TV show. There might be 10 minutes before the TV show comes on. That's found time. And you can use that time to create very easy habits. For example, when I wash dishes, I listen to podcasts about herbal remedies, like how to create herbal remedies at my home. And that's called a habit stack. I do that habit at the same time that I'm doing another habit that happens every day. Another idea of that is habit chain. So after my morning veggie juice, I will then take my veggie scraps and put them into the compost. That's a habit chain. And then making the homesteading a priority. A lot of people think, oh, I need to have like an hour or 2 hours a day to devote to my priority. That's not true. If you have 5 minutes, you can build on those small successes. You do 5 minutes of that thing that's very important, and then do all the other things in your life. And eventually that 5 minutes will grow and it'll become a lifestyle change for you.
Certainly. A routine, people. There is
Yes.
already consistency of what you're doing. So, Miss Elizabeth, how can someone begin their homesteading journey without land or a traditional farm?
Daniel, that's a good question, because I hear it a lot, especially in the suburbs,
Yes,
especially in Southern California, because people cannot afford land in Southern
true.
California, and they're often sharing an apartment with others. So if you don't have land, there's a few options for you. The first I recommend is doing a windowsill garden, just starting to grow a few very easy things that do well with low light so you can get used to what it's like to have good soil and what it's like to I tend to, when I first started, I loved my plants too much and I would water them so much they would die. And I never understood why. So you have to learn how to
True.
feel the water's moisture and stuff. A second way that you can do it, which people don't even realize, is you can borrow land from others. So when I lived in San Francisco, which is a highly populated city, there were lots of plots of land that people were doing nothing with. And yes, you can also buy a community plot and you have to wait in line for a community garden, or you can knock on your neighbor's door and say, hey, I noticed you have this land and just little tiny bit of land. I can make it a really pretty garden and then we can share the produce. What do you say? And so that's another way that in an urban setting, you can get land for free. All you're doing is sharing your produce. And people are, people with really sad looking yards, they don't want yards that are very sad. They want happy yards. They just probably don't have time. And so if someone came and said, I can make your yard beautiful and I can provide you some food, that's a great way to build community and also do homesteading that's not expensive.
Totally agree, Miss Elizabeth. So, what are some common misconceptions about homesteading that you address in the book?
Yeah, there are three big myths, actually. And these are the myths, these are the common misconceptions that I hear a great deal. The three are I don't have time, I don't have enough money, and it's too complicated. I hear that all the time. And I've heard that in many aspects of my life. When I started learning languages, I heard the same thing. And so I always think about well, can we bust those myths? Can we make it possible for those myths not to exist? We talked a little bit about I don't have time. You can utilize found time. And I'll tell you, that's how I learned languages and that's how I learned how to homestead. Anytime that I had free time, I was using it to have fun in the homesteading mindset project. In terms of I don't have enough money, homesteading is actually it can be quite frugal. So when you're growing your own food, it costs a lot less to use seeds than it does to buy the food at the market or the farmer's market. And then you're doing a lot of upcycling as well. For instance, I make homemade vinegar from fruit scraps. So I'll have apple scraps or just the peels of grapefruit are in my vinegar jars right now. And I ferment them into vinegar. It's very simple. It takes maybe 2 seconds, maybe 2 to 5 seconds every day to just stir it. And in a month, I have vinegar that I can use for cleaning. Then I put a little bit of essential oils on it and in it. And now I have a non-toxic cleaning vinegar that costs me pennies on the dollar. Whereas if you go to a store and you get the fancy bottle with the happy, beautiful lavender and the artistic design on the label, that's a good $7 or $8 bottle. So often I'll make the cleaning vinegar and I'll shake it in front of my husband and say, I just saved you $8. And then he needs to give me that applause track is what I really need. But that's another way that you can save money. And then community shares, we talked about every season. Every kumquat season, I get enough kumquats to feed a family of 4. And that's from my neighbor, Sharon, who's also my friend. And I noticed that she had a kumquat tree. And I said, listen, whenever you have extra. And so she constantly shares that with me. So I know how to receive, but I also know how to give freely. So for me, and Sharon, I gave her kefir grains, which can be $15 to buy kefir grains. And then I taught her how to ferment raw milk, and she's super happy. So that's another way that you can save money. And then positive change is too complicated. This is really, I think, the crux of the problem with people that want to make positive change, but they're not quite sure how. And the book addresses this, and it shows you step by step how to keep it simple, how to practice frivolous joy so that your motivation level is high, and how to fill up your self-care cup. Because when you find joy in what you're doing and you make it fun, it'll pique your curiosity. It'll create small successes that will turn into incredibly big successes. And quite honestly, daydreaming about stuff that's going to bring you joy, that's absolutely free.
Definitely give and take, people.
I got applause again. I love it.
Congratulations, Miss Elizabeth, for doing this, and of course, your books itself. So, how does self-sufficiency tie into a mental and emotional well-being?
That's a great question. Is there a connection between homesteading and mental health? I would say absolutely yes. When we are dealing with homesteading and mental health, a lot of times modern day humans are dealing with a great deal of outside stress because we're not living in the regular routine. The modern world is not normal. It's not normal to not wake up when the sun comes up and go to sleep when the sun goes down. It's not normal to not get appropriate sleep or nutrition. All of these things can add up to anxiety, stress-related illnesses, insomnia, depression. And in my acupuncture practice, that's what I focus on, is helping people have a holistic health. Not just my back pain doesn't hurt anymore, but also I'm sleeping like a baby and I'm no longer depressed or anxious. And there are two things that a wise person has often told me. The antidote, I always say anecdote, which is not, it's not the word. It's the antidote to anxiety is action. And the antidote to hopelessness is gratitude. And you get both in homesteading. So there's a little bit of a self-empowerment when you are stepping out of big box companies, big pharma, big ag, big food companies, and you're saying, I'm going to take care of this beautiful body that I have and the body of others in my family. I'm going to do that by creating nutrient dense food. That's empowering. That's like a little step in the direct of hopefulness. And then just taking any kind of action. There's a study that was done on people with hobbies that use their hands. So people that make crafts, people that raise livestock, people that cook, people that build things. Those folks that have a habit or a hobby of using their hands actually have a higher contentment level in their lives. They're happier people because of it. And homesteading does that naturally. And then lastly, it gets you moving your body. When you move your body, your mood stabilizes, you get an endorphin release, you get good stuff. You're moving your body a lot when you're homesteading, which is just a fantastic bonus.
Certainly. So, Miss Elizabeth, what will be your advice for those people out there who want to be a homesteader mindset?
Oh, well, firstly, come to my website, buy the book on Amazon. I have a free gift for everyone. It's a habit tracker to help you keep it really simple, but also build on those successes. And you can get that at createwellnessproject.com/gift, GIFT. And if you can't afford the Homesteader Mindset book, you can get it in libraries. So go to your local library and ask them to order it. In terms of what is my one thing that I would say you should do is find what all that I've mentioned today, find what kind of brought you joy or inspiration and start there. Start with the joy, start with the self-care, and the rest will follow.
Thank you for your advice, Miss Elizabeth. And what will be your short-term and long-term goals in writing?
Well, I have 2 more books in the works. One is, this is the working title. It's A Kitchen Revolution, or Freedom Starts in the Kitchen. And that's all about teaching people how to create habits to make it easy to have fast food in your home, real fast food. And then I'll be doing some courses because I love talking about sharing how to make cleaning vinegar. It's so easy and people don't know how to do it.
Yes, so good luck to your goals, Miss Elizabeth, and you are most welcome to come back and let's talk about your upcoming books. So, how does the book blend philosophy and practical action?
That's a good question. Because of my background in mental health through traditional Chinese medicine, I'm always looking at the problem with the eye on how to create how to create a system that's going to give you self-development, that's going to help you grow. And on top of that, also keep you healthy. And so philosophy is really kind of blended into the book. It's the homesteader mindset. It's for anyone that wants to create a homestead wherever they live, a more sustainable life. But it's also how you can achieve goals in any way. I just took the habits that I use in all the ways that I create things in my life and just put a spin of the homestead idea on it. And it's remarkable. I find that I talked to someone recently and he told me when he was reading it, he was able to get more goals done that weekend that didn't necessarily have to do with homesteading, but he was so inspired by the systems that are in place that it motivated him to continue going for his dreams, whatever they were that weekend.
So, what tools or resources do you recommend for people getting started?
Tools and resources. I love keeping it simple. And I love to read books. That is my thing. So if you're going to look at books that would interest you, Compost Everything by David the Good is one of my favorite books for composting. I also love using YouTube. There are a few channels that are really quite amazing. Mary's Nest teaches you easy, simple cooking skills. Bumblebee Apothecary is another YouTube channel that teaches you she's got a homesteading channel, and she also has a channel on creating nutrient-dense food, especially through the Weston A. Price Foundation model. There's podcasts that are really great, like Wise Traditions podcast is great. And these tools don't cost you much money. You don't really need much to get started. The most important thing you need to get started is just the willingness to suspend belief that you do have enough time, you do have enough money, and it's not that complicated.
True, people, and stop procrastinating. Do it.
Just do it.
Just do it. So, Miss Elizabeth, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, Mental Health 101, in its first season, people, first season with Mr. Jim Mick Smith. Please do listen to our latest episode. We are talking about, of course, mental health awareness. So please do listen, Mental Health 101, wherever you listen your podcast. So, Miss Elizabeth, if there's one key takeaway you want readers to remember, what would it be?
The takeaway that I think all readers and listeners can bring away from this book is self-care will make the world a better place. If you practice self-care religiously, you will be in a better position to create amazing things in your life.
Amazing things, people. So please support Miss Elizabeth. Miss Elizabeth, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge to the world. So can you please invite our listeners to support your book?
Thank you, Daniel. You can go anywhere on Amazon. It's available on Amazon or anywhere that you can purchase books. And you can come to my website for your free gift, the Habit Tracker. And that can be found at www.createwellnessproject.com/gift. And thank you so much for having me on today. I really appreciate it.
You are most welcome. Yes, people, let's support Miss Elizabeth Bruckner because, as I said, if you support her, more and more and more empowering books like this to come. So, Miss Elizabeth, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Daniel.
More to come, people. See you soon.